Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the October 23rd, 2025 regular meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. I do want to mention at the end, it's a fairly brief business section today, but at the end of the business section, we actually have 3 updates that the public and certainly members of the audience might be interested in. We have a federal shutdown update, which is very important to a lot of people in this community. Denise Price is going to give us that. Chris Murphy is our Joint Planning and Zoning Director is going to give us an update on the sort of the Planning and Zoning Services report review. And we're also going to have an update from Courtney Driver, our Director of the City County Utilities, and it's actually our Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utilities report. Those 3 will come at the end. Any citizen who is interested in participating in the public session portion of the meeting can actually do so remotely by calling 336-422-1200, 336-422-1200. And you'll be placed on hold until the public session comment portion of the meeting begins. And of course, members of the audience who are interested in participating in the public session, all you need to do is fill out a speaker card. You can even do that as late as now and give it to our clerk at the end of the dais today. We will begin our meeting with an invocation from Megan Grigg, Church of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner McDaniel. I'd like to invite everyone to please stand if they are able.
Our Father, how blessed we are this day that we might come together as leaders, as a community, as constituents. Grateful for the opportunity we have to consider our community, to vitalize our thoughts, and to keep an open. We ask that our discussions be made with integrity, with service, grace, and passion in mind. We're grateful that we have this opportunity to be as one, and that the work that we do brings one another together. We ask for thy grace, and we're grateful, and we say these things in the name of
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Grigg, thank you very much for being here. All righty. Page 2. The first item on the agenda is a resolution giving notice of intention to reduce the salary, allowances, and other compensation of a non-incumbent sheriff of Forsyth County who takes office in December 2026. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner McDaniel. Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is a resolution supporting Operation Green Light for veterans in Forsyth County, North Carolina. And Commissioner Wilson will read the resolution.
Whereas the residents of Forsyth County have great respect, admiration, and the utmost gratitude for all the men and women who have selflessly served our country and this community in the armed forces. Whereas the contributions and sacrifices of those who served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedoms and way of life enjoyed by our citizens. Whereas Forsyth County seeks to honor individuals who have made countless sacrifices for freedom by placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all. Whereas veterans continue to serve our community in the American Legion, veterans of foreign wars, religious groups, civil service, and by functioning as county veterans service officers in 29 states to help fellow former service members access more than $52 billion in federal health, disability, and compensation benefits each year. Whereas approximately 200,000 service members transition to civilian communities annually, and an estimated 20% increase of service members will transition to civilian life in the near future. Whereas studies indicate that 44 to 72% of service members experience high levels of stress during transition from military to civilian life. Whereas active military service members transitioning from military service are at high risk for suicide during their first year after military service. Whereas the National Association of Counties encourages all counties, parishes, and boroughs to recognize Operation Greenlight for veterans. And whereas Forsyth County appreciates the sacrifices of our United States military personnel and believes specific recognition should be granted. Now therefore be it resolved that the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners hereby supports Operation Greenlight by lighting certain county buildings green for the period beginning November 4 through November 11, 2025, the week of Veterans Day, a time to salute and honor the service and sacrifice of our men and women in uniform transitioning from active service. And be it further resolved that in observance of Operation Greenlight, Forsyth County encourages its citizens in patriotic tradition to recognize the importance of honoring all those who made immeasurable sacrifices to preserve freedom by displaying a green light in the window of their place of business or residence during the week of Veterans Day, November 4th through November 11, 2025, adopted this 23rd day of October 2025.
Second.
Second to that motion. Good. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any calls or cards for the public session?
Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped that. Switch back. We have the approval of the minutes from October the 9th, 2025. Do we have a motion? Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Bessie. Second? Second by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Now, Madam Clerk, do we have any calls or cards?
Mr. Chairman, we have 2 speaker cards.
All right.
The first speaker is Alan Daniel. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. Alan Daniel, 100 Fernworth Court in Clemmons, North Carolina. I want to address the property that has been requested to be, the school district has requested to be purchased for Ashley. And I sent all of you all 2 emails earlier today. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at them. But the whole thing about this property just stinks to high heavens. As I'm sitting here, I'm looking at property values of $11,100. One of them, these 2 properties side by side, district paid $15,000 for one of them. Both of them valued at $11,100, paid $87,500 for the other one. They paid $87,500 for another property valued at $22,400 to the same entity, Forsyth Economic Ventures. The board of directors of that entity has some familiar names on it. On the other hand, there's a piece of property valued at $11,100 that was taken by court order. Another property valued at $11,100 paid $50-some thousand for. All of this has happened since 2020. I didn't even know we were looking at that property in 2020. Nothing was said about it publicly that I'm aware of. But the gentleman that owns the property in question purchased it in 2020 after the school district started purchasing properties in that area. The property at that time was valued at $7,300, and he paid $19,100, or $19,000. Now, if I'm a shrewd land investor, I'm not paying 3 times what a piece of property's worth unless I got a buyer in my other back pocket that I know is going to give me more than I got in it. It just stinks. Not to mention that you have already given the district $13 million to get them out of debt. This is neither the time, nor, I think, is this a decent place to put a school. It sits on a little bitty piece of property right on the what will be an interstate ramp. And we don't need it. In case you haven't looked, enrollment in the district is down 1,400 students from just last year. There may be a time when we need a new Ashley. This is neither the time nor the place. Thank you.
Marcy West, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you. Marcy West, 331 Carolina Circle, and I'm running for County Commissioner, District B. I just wanted to thank the commissioners for making the decision to take the debt that is owed from the schools to the county and use that as matching funds. I really appreciate that. Decision was made. It's very important for us to support our schools to improve this situation. I also noticed that All In for Our Schools, that foundation that was set up, has now got an area where folks can donate to put funds towards that deficit. It's like having a credit card. You've got to get that paid off. The money was paid. There needs to be accountability, but it needs to be separate and apart from this. So I just want to encourage people to go ahead and, please go ahead and help the schools. And I appreciate it. Thanks.
All righty.
Mr. Chairman, we had 2 late speaker cards.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The next speaker is Mike Barisi. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mike Barisi. My address is 3331 Healy Drive. I have a proposal request to establish and funding of a new position entitled Funds Allocation Inspector within Forsyth County. This position primarily responsibility will be to ensure accuracy, accountability, and transparency in the allocation and the use of county funds distributed to departments and community programs. The Funds Allocation Inspector will directly work with commissioners and the departments for the allocation of funds. The position will review funds requests and supporting documents, verify the accuracy of the material costs and associated budget estimates, conduct site visits and inspections to confirm the allocation of funds are appropriate and used for its intended purposes. I will prepare reports to the county commissioner about findings and recommendations. Maintain communication with the funds allocation department to improve efficiency and fiscal transparency. The position will function independently with one inspector assigned to carry out these duties and coordinations with existing administration staff. The key objectives of the funds allocation inspector is to protect county resources by ensuring that the taxpayers' funds and use responsibility and the funding's request are based on accurate and verifiable information. By establishing this position, Forsyth County will strengthen oversight and public confidence in the funding process. Currently, there is no role dedicated exclusively to verifying material costs and validating the use of funds after allocation. The introduction of the funds allocation inspector will fill this gap, reduce redundancy, and enhance fiscal integrity. The position will help prevent over expenditures, miscellaneous, and duplicate funding by introducing and subsidize verification process before and after disbursement. I have served as a commission notary for over 12 years, bringing extensive experience in documentation review, verification, and compliance with state and local standards. This background complements the duties of the funds allocation inspector by reinforcing accuracy, accountability, and trust to all reviewed material and processes.
We're past 3 minutes.
Yes.
Can you make one last sentence and we're over?
That's it. I got the breakdown of the cost of the inspector. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last speaker is Kwamakia Shavers. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, County Chair, County Commissioners, and County Manager. My name is Kwame Kia Shavers, 3850 Heatherview Lane. I first want to say I advocated during multiple meetings to the board to support our school district, and I am grateful that my request was heard and acted upon. Therefore, I want to start by expressing my gratitude for your leadership in creating unique solutions to support our school board. I recognize that the current situation is not an error on the county's part. However, I appreciate how it has encouraged other stakeholders and community members to step up during this challenging time. Additionally, I want to continue advocating for 6 p.m. meetings. As you can see, the room is pretty much empty right now, and it's quite difficult to attend 2 p.m. meetings. Although I am making an effort to be here because of my passion for this work, evening meetings are essential not just for budget discussions, but also for ongoing decisions made by our county. This would ensure that community involvement is maximized. I urge you to consider scheduling 6 p.m. meetings in the new year. I understand it may be challenging to change such a long-standing tradition, but focusing on the community's needs rather than personal convenience will set us on the path towards greater inclusion. I would also suggest implementing mailers to keep community members informed about important issues happening in our county. This would provide constituents with the necessary information and allow them the opportunity to engage in local politics effectively. Lastly, I am urging all local government entities to proactively recharge and re-engage with community members in order to restore inclusion. This approach will prevent situations where community members feel compelled to only fill the gallery and the overflow room in opposition. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
Now, okay. Madam County Manager, we are ready now to continue the remainder of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioner, staff, and guests. The agenda items before you have been briefed and hopefully questions answered. Agenda item number 5 is a resolution approving the amount to be spent by the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Board of Education to acquire land to be used for the future Ashley Elementary School site and an associated amendment to the Education Capital Projects Ordinance to transfer $505,000 from budget reserve to the new Ashley Elementary project. There were some questions about this item. Darrell Walker from Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Schools is here to provide an update from Monday's questions.
Darrell, why don't you come forward?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I did have a conversation with the landowner after the meeting Monday and another conversation this morning. I'm not a really good negotiator, I don't think, but he did reduce his price by 10% this morning when I'm in my last conversation. So with that being said, brings the cost of the property to $45,000.
Could you talk a little bit about, I think at the last at Monday, we actually talked some about sort of the commissioner approval on land purchases by the board for properties. We just heard from, in our open communication to the board, a number of properties of the Ashley parcels that were assimilated. Were all those brought before us to review? I just kind of don't remember any properties with these huge rent, because we would always look at our just general tax value. And did that just not happen?
No, what I recall was what came to you, it was a condemnation process for majority of them because they were back taxes owed on most of all those properties. And so I pretty much recall having that conversation here because we had a conversation that there was one particular parcel that had 11 different heirs and across the country, and a couple of them were incarcerated, and we were having to track people down. I just remember that part of the conversation, but it's been several years, so.
5, it sounds like, if
Yeah.
it was purchased in 2020.
Yeah.
And I'm a little curious about the comments that also were made relative to the difference in properties right next to each other and going from $11,000 assessments to $87,000, and right next door paying, $12,000, $15,000. I mean, was that not a concern? Did the issue of the condemnation worked in the other part and did not get a part of the conversation when the amounts were that much more than the appraised values? I mean, that's nearly 8 times the amount.
Just what I recall about it, Dr. Martin, was that there was an attorney group that kind of put all this package together at that point in time and came back to the district. I don't want to sit here and tell you I can recall all that and get all the facts right, but I think it was, what was fair market value at that time that was negotiated out. And but I don't know if I can stand here today and give you clarity around all that. Just to be totally honest with you.
Any other questions for Darrell?
Mr. Walker, do you recall when the proposed site for the new Ashley first became public knowledge?
The site itself?
Yes.
Around 2019, 20, somewhere in that area.
So it was public information that the school district was in the process of seeking to buy properties in that area before 2020.
Yes, sir.
Right. That's
A lot of it was in conjunction and along with that, when the Choice Neighborhood Grant process was going along, because we were a part of that process and that conversation.
I do recall that. I just wanted to double check facts.
Yes.
Because if we're having concerns that there was presumably some insider information going on, if the fact of the purchases and the purpose of the purchases going forward were already public information when, there were certain purchases were made during 2020, then that would not necessarily be based on any kind of inside information, just general public knowledge. All right, thank you.
Yes.
I do have one question for Mr. Walker. Mr. Walker, I see that a part of the resolution is to provide the funding for the administrative fees for the construction team, which would then bring to the table, ideally, what is going to be the cost of the school, which I think is the $64 million question. And I think the longer we belabor this process, then we continue to, in my opinion, devalue the commitment that this board has already made based on, I think, the advocacy of citizens, not just in District 8, but throughout this county. It has become a moral movement to have a new Ashley Elementary School. And so how soon after we pass this resolution to get this company paid will we know what is the final cost for Ashley?
Early on in 2026.
So February, by then?
County Manager, if you don't mind, I sent her a schedule
Yeah, he sent
yesterday.
it, yeah, and I will forward it to the board. It is a estimated schedule.
It's kind of a timeline all the way through the spring of 2026.
So we need to, okay.
Part of this is a request for some additional funding. We are reducing some square footage of the building to try to get it in line with the funding that's available. And then the other is for the contractor to create the GMP.
Can I ask a question? Do we have 2 action items today? It looks like 5A is a resolution about approving the amount to be spent on the site, and B is about basically a transfer of $505,000 to cover a number of things. Are those 2 actions that we have?
It is technically 2 actions, but we've put it in one agenda item.
And that's caused some confusion because we've gotten an email about paying $500,000 for this 0.13 acre tract. And did you say it was a 10% reduction?
Yeah, this morning.
Okay. Well, it's more than, did you say from 55 down to 45 or?
So it was, the actual asking price for the land was $50,000. We have 55 in there because that's the attorney fees for closing costs.
Okay.
As well as
I got it.
realtor fees for that. But it's, so the 10% would bring it down to 45,000.
Got it.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Yes, sir.
So would we not be changing this agenda item to reflect the 45 versus the 50? Okay, I'm ahead of you. sorry.
Both items would need to be changed by 5,000. So in the first one, it would be 55 to 50. And the second one, I presume, would be 505 to 500.
And have we received the new design plans already
So we
relative
had,
to this news?
we had design through construction documents, and then kind of looking at what we kind of were estimating as costs, we knew we needed to reduce some costs in this building. I knew I wasn't going to be able to bring you that dollar amount. And so we reduced about 30,000 feet. Most of it was some breakout spaces in the second floor. So we're trying to get in line with the funding that you have in the additional capacity for 23 and 2025.
Right. And so for me, if you don't mind, Chairman, I'd like to weigh in. I think sometimes we move too fast, and I want an Ashley too. We deserve an Ashley for our community, but we deserve to get it right. And many times I believe that the school board now, again, missing this opportunity, it's costing us, right? And here we are today with new information about a lesser price for this, for the space that's needed. I would like this board to consider giving us about 2 weeks for us to be able to just, I want to be able to feel comfortable. I want to go through these documents again, look at that design, even if it's a draft, and then therefore make a decision. But I'm not confident today.
Yeah, to be totally honest with you, so what created the need was not necessarily the building, but the grading plan in this created the cut and fill part of that created a need for retaining wall if that property was not
I
available.
get that
So
part, and that's
it's
what-
more of a grading issue that created it than the building itself.
Yeah, I need a little more time.
Are you suggesting that you would like to postpone this item?
I would like to, yes, so that at least staff can get the paperwork correct, because it's not.
I would be happy to second that. Is there any discussion?
I would like to say that I think it's a further delay of what our community has been fighting for with Ashley Elementary School. I think that many times before we've had to, make the simple corrections by way of, something technically that we see on the report, and we move forward. And I just think that, when it comes to, with all due respect, issues coming out of District A, there is the belaboring and just the lack of urgency when there are very important issues that's facing our community. And what I would tell you is that when you I think go into the old Ashley Elementary versus where we're moving with a new Ashley Elementary, then you definitely see the urgency of making sure that all of our students in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County have access to a great school and building that's upfitted to modern standards, that's in a great location. And I think that for the past 10 years, our community have made a very real and passionate plea to school board and also the county commission, which we committed to definitely getting Ashley built as soon as we can. And I think that this is just another delay that is unwarranted, unnecessary, and in my opinion, just quite honestly disrespectful to the cause and the process.
I have, I need some information, and so I know pretty close to where this is. I would like to know precisely. I think I know within about 3 or 4 blocks, but with the what's here in our package, that image is not very good. If that's the only one you have, need to look at something else. I know Chris probably can come up with him if you give him some cross streets, but the address, I could actually find it, but I'm just I'd intended between Monday and today to go by and look at it, because of when you talk about the $50,000 and then what it reads in here, or $500,000 for redoing whatever needs to be done. That's just a big something difference. And if it is $500,000, I just want to look at it and see what the topo is, because it's got to be it seems to me it would have to be with the topo, and you've described some of it about the grading, so that may or may not be what it is. But whenever there's planning going on with a school, can you do schools or any projects you're doing, can you do enough research work or that's the kind of things you run into after you've already done a whole lot of something? And here with property has been purchased, and it looked like is this? You tell me exactly what the area of the land is.
Yeah. So if you can switch over to this over here, I can.
That's a little better.
So the property that says existing PB zoning to remain, that is the parcel of land we were talking about today, which is the 0.13 acres, which is the 55,000 that's on your sheet that's now 50,000, right?
The 0.13 is 13/100ths of an acre.
That's
is that
correct.
right?
That's correct. That is what that area right there, it says existing PB zoning to remain.
Well, the address gives 1809 North Liberty Street.
Yes. And you can
just point that out, and I can figure it from there, but I don't know what we'll end up doing today, but nevertheless.
I'll also tell you while I've got you, if you see this parking lot that's right above it, so when the Housing Authority and the City of Winston-Salem sold us this property, they didn't realize, but they sold us the parking lot to the park. So they have no parking lot now, and so my intent is to sell that property back because they need it for the park. There's no public parking for Fairview Park now, so there'll be another transaction at some point, regardless probably of what happens with this parcel. There'll probably be another transaction here. But you can see, this is kind of the site in general. I don't know. So you can kind of see the site. The school itself kind of sits like a Z, two-story building that would kind of sit there. So it's a tight little site. And honestly, when we went through this whole process, this particular parcel we're talking about was not part of the discussion with the board. We didn't actually need it. It is until we saw the grading plan that created a difference, a topo, between this parcel and our property next to it, that created well, we probably don't want to spend $500,000 on a retaining wall. As we were trying to cut this budget down as tight as we could, did it make more sense to buy the property than it did to build the wall? That's why we're kind of here today, quite honestly.
Okay, other questions?
So,
Yeah, leave that up. Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to address
Go ahead.
something real quick, because as the representative for District A, it is my responsibility to be physically responsible to our constituents. So therefore, for me to be more comfortable in this delay, that's why I'm asking for the delay.
I understand.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman. Dan first and then Gloria.
I'm committed to the construction of the new Ashley Elementary, and I think this is a good site, actually. But I don't think there's going to be any effective difference in the start or completion date of construction by a 2-week additional review. And any of our colleagues who want to tour the site, that's where I park when I'm visiting Fairview Park. So I know that location. It's about a 0.8 tenths of a mile, or it's about 0.8 of a mile walk from the existing Ashley site to this site. Staff and faculty and kids are not going to be accessing the school from, at least I would assume they're not going to be accessing the school from the Liberty Street, which does include an on-ramp to 52 there. They'll be coming in from the other direction. Or at least that's what would make sense to me. Is that?
As part of the zoning meeting, rezoning meeting last Thursday, Bethlehem Drive, as you see it, that runs there through the property is now will be closed.
Got it.
And the entry into the school will be off 21st. And then there will be a bus entry off of New Hope.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I can take any of our colleagues who want to see it in person to the site, and we can walk around and take a look at it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll vote in favor of the motion today, but unless the potential buyer reduces his price far more than what he has, I will not be voting for this in 2 weeks.
I do have one point to make, Mr. Martin. So I think what I heard is that the seller of the property bought a piece of property valued at $7,000 for $19,000 back in 20, which is a 37% increase. So right now the property is valued at $19,000 and he's asking for $45,000, which is a 42% increase, which is about 5% between those two numbers. So I think if I'm a citizen and I think I am trying to sell the property that I bought at 37% higher than what the value was then, I would be a bit disturbed that there is possibly insinuation that this seller is trying to get way more than what the property is worth. I don't think we're trying to say that, but I did want to make the point that based on what the seller bought it for in 2020 and right now based on what he is selling it for, it is a 5% difference, and we have no clue how much it has cost him to maintain the property. I think that is, something that we just need to, I think, be very mindful of as it relates to this citizen even willing to, sell the property to us. And the last point that I would make is I think my confusion right now about the delay, as Commissioner McDaniel alluded to, wanting to see the design of what Ashley looks like. And I don't know if the design is ready so that it can come to us for us to look at. I think at the end of the day, quite honestly, if the school board has approved a design and now that it has been adjusted, I'm sure you all have let the school board look at the adjusted design based on trying to decrease the size of the school. I think on our end is more about what does it cost than per se it is whether we agree with the design of the school. And that is the point that I'm trying to get at. When will we know the cost of Ashley Elementary School? That's the main delay. And I think, going through the motion of all of this just to me seems to belabor points that's not relevant. Let's get to the business of how much does the school cost to build? Is the money available? Let's move forward.
Well, I just want to say, just doing a little arithmetic, if you paid $19,000 for something and you want to sell it for $45,000, that's a 237% increase in price. 237. It's 2.37 times more. The other thing is that I actually just took the 0.13 and at $45,000 and extended that to if it were 1 acre, that's $346,153 for a single acre of land in this location. So I think it is clearly more than it is worth. And I guess it's our duty from a kind of fiscal responsibility is to ask those questions and actually, I'm with Vice Chair Wizenhut, I'm going to say no if that's 45,000 is the final kind of issue. And I know if I'm Darrell, I'd probably say, well, I guess we'll have to pay $500,000 more in order to, to do this. And I'd probably like to understand it better, and I do appreciate Commissioner McDaniel's motion to table this until the next regular meeting, and maybe at least I don't want to get in the weeds, but I think we're kind of in the weeds, and I'd kind of like to understand this now just a little bit more, and I am a little curious about some of the comments and things that our speaker said earlier today about how these packages were put together to begin with, this actual site. And some of that may be, I'll ask our attorney later, but that may be nothing that can be done about that other than to question the wisdom and judgment of those particular decisions. Is there any other discussion before we vote on tabling to the next regular meeting?
Well,
Go ahead.
no, after you.
Postpone or table, which is the best word?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just add, just for the good of the order, staff has requested information about the purchase prices of other properties for Ashley, and we have not received that information from the school staff. Those were not approved by this board. And it would be, the motion would be to postpone to a specific date, to postpone to 2 weeks from today.
All right, based on that information and in deference to Commissioner McDaniel, I'm comfortable supporting the motion, but again, I wish these two items had never been joined at the hip. I think that's caused confusion among our constituents and me as well. I don't think there's any question here on this commission that the price is inflated. But at the same time, we had the information from our county attorney last time, the cost of condemnation, hiring other outside counsel, getting an appraisal, and of course, once one finishes with that process, there can always be an appeal. So, it could be cost prohibitive at some point. So I was willing to swallow that bullet at the time. But, I have to say, as a practical matter, at some point in time, we need to move forward on this and put it to bed. And as much as I'm, not excited about buying any more property for this county, perhaps that would encourage us to get rid of some of the property that the county doesn't need. And I've got a list of at least 7 of those right now we probably could turn our attention to in order to make everybody feel better in that regard. And then I'm going to commend the commission for the discussion on Monday, because somehow I have the notion that perhaps all that discussion about condemnation affected a decrease in the asking price, with deference to you and your persuasive methods.
Any other discussion? This is postponed until November 6th.
I did want to maybe ask our county attorney to reiterate some feedback he provided if we went down the path of, instead of giving the seller the asking price, which is $26,000 difference. And I don't know, maybe that math is wrong too, Commissioner Martin. But there was some conversation that you shared with me about what we could possibly pay in trying to, of course, go about, I guess, the, what is it called? Condemnation or eminent domain is the term I'm looking for. We went down that route to try to get the property. What could possibly be our fee other than just paying the seller what they're asking for?
Just to be clear, it would be the Board of Education pursuing condemnation, which is the same as eminent domain. They have the authority to do that. What that would entail is some attorney, I'm guessing not internal staff, but it could be internal staff of the school board or outside attorney, filing an action. You can have what's called a quick take, where you get the property almost immediately, within 30 days. They would own the property. If the current owner of the property decided to fight that, then you have a hearing about what the valuation is. The court would eventually reach a valuation, as Commissioner said, that could be appealed. So it's hard to say how much exactly that would cost. I would say one issue here, a factual issue, would be that the Board of Education has already said that $50,000 is a fair price. So it would be hard for them to go for a judge and say, well, no, it should be $19,000. So it's kind of like unscrambling the egg. This would have been a good thing to think of a year or two ago.
And is it accurate, Mr. Watkins, that when an offer is made until acceptance, it can be withdrawn, correct?
The offer can be withdrawn, and pursuant to the statutes, the offer really wouldn't be valid until this board had blessed it.
Last time. Any other discussion? All in favor of postponing until November 6th, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1.
Agenda item number 6 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Kelly Office Machines, Inc., doing business as Kelly Office Solutions, for lease of copiers to Forsyth County for a 4-month period, provide click rate printing on a per-month basis, and 6-month licensing and support for the PaperCut subscription platform in an amount not to exceed $69,495.31.
Do we have a
Move
motion?
approval.
Motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 7 is a resolution authorizing an amendment to the agreement with Piedmont Service Group, LLC, for on-call repair services for HVAC systems at 5 county-owned facilities located at Smith Reynolds Airport. This would add $30,000 to the existing contract for on-call services for a total contract amount not to exceed $79,284.
We have a motion.
Motion approved.
Motion approved by Commissioner McDaniel.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wilson. Any discussion?
I do want to make the point, and this is number 6 agenda item, I think, on
7.
But on our, is this the resolution for the repair over at the
Yes.
Piedmont Service Group? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So I thought that the conversation last, I guess at our briefing, I thought was interesting that we were trying to determine if this company was just, I guess, change ordering us to death as relates to why wasn't it in the original contract. And I think that, unfortunately, as long as we try to maintain, at least on our non-competitive bids, this lowest bid, then we kind of get what we pay for as it relates. You just really can't lock any reputable business down with a price that's not realistic. Then they have to come back and ask for change order. I wish we could ideally look more, if it's non-competitive according to state law, that we're looking for something of more quality versus, they're the obvious lowest bidder. And I think that as long as we continue to just go with the lowest price without looking at reasonably what market says you can get whatever good and service done, then we will continue to face issues probably with what's going on with a lot of our properties around maintenance and, just having to, I think, not spend the taxpayer dollars in a very, what I call rational way versus it's the cheapest way.
I think I hear what you're saying, but on this particular item, we're asking them for on-call services just for maintenance of HVAC equipment. It's really because of a need we have to service the equipment if it goes down. If we don't need it, we won't pay for it. But as we get into our winter months with our airport facilities, some of the systems being old and we have tenants, our airport director just want to make sure that we're being proactive and having essentially a company on retainer in the event we need them. So if there's no heat in the building, we can get somebody out ASAP. Otherwise, in absence of this, he's kind of waiting to go through our procurement process on the backside, and that can take a week, 2 weeks, sometimes more. So I hear what you're saying, but I just feel like this particular item is a little bit different.
Yes, and the discussion really surrounded, and I talked to Mark Davidson afterwards, just the manner, not the vendors that bid, it was more the matter in which the bids were evaluated. And basically, it was on a $20-something thousand work and not on the labor hours pieces to put together the on-call work. And we talked through that, and I'm certainly fine for, where we are this year. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 8 is a resolution authorizing execution of a lease agreement between Forsyth County and the City of Winston-Salem for lease of 4,357 square feet of county-owned real property located at 651 Highland Avenue. This would be used as an overflow shelter for individuals who are unhoused from November 15th through March 1st. The rental rate is $1. The city would be responsible for the cost of any building modifications and repair needs, and the county is responsible for utilities.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner McDaniel,
I'll second. I do have a discussion question.
second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion?
As I recall the terms of the lease, the insurance coverage for the use would also be the city's responsibility. Am I remembering that correctly?
We would essentially not cover anything other than utilities for this property.
But specifically, I believe insurance costs, damage risks, those would all be subject to the city coverage, yes?
I'm just going to have our Deputy General Services Director, I'm pretty sure, but I want to make sure she speaks directly.
That's my recollection. I just want to confirm that.
Yeah, there's indemnification.
Yes.
Right. So the city would indemnify us to the extent permitted by law, and they would have to carry all the general liability and all of that. We would maintain the property insurance.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
I'm in favor of this, and this is probably out of our wheelhouse, but I thought of it last week. The hours are from 7 to 7?
7 p. to 7 a.
I'm an early riser, and I can tell you the coldest part of the morning is at 7 o'clock. And that was verified for me this morning on the news. Weather. Could possibly it be from 8 to 8? Because it's really cold. That's the coldest part of the morning.
We're happy to adjust those hours. Those hours were actually provided by the city, though.
I know.
Mm-hmm. But
Yeah, we'll certainly mention it to them, and if they decide they want to change the hours, we can absolutely be flexible around that. But that is traditionally what they have done, even in other locations for the overflow shelter. But I hear you, and I agree. It's cold in the morning. Yeah.
Thank you.
Could you remind us, or me, who's going to be in the building? Men, women, children?
no children, men and women, no families.
No families.
Well, 20 males, 15 females, I recall.
Up to, yes, sir.
Okay.
So was that one end of the building, or there?
Yes, so they'll have different dormitories same side of the building, opposite ends on that side.
I'm okay with the 8 to 8. However, with it being adults and no children, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda items 9 and 10 are resolutions approving refunds by the tax assessor and collector. 9 is in the amount of $24,094.17, and 10 is in the amount of $283.48.
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner Linville. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'd always also like to thank Assessor Collector Ms. Markle for saving paper with this fine print. If it was normal print, it would take probably 5 times. There's several pages here, and that's fine if you keep doing that. But what I'm gonna have to do, I'm gonna have to get me some 250 power glasses.
You need more than that.
Thank you.
All righty. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda items 11 through 13 are our reports. 11 is the August Human Resources Report, 12 is the September Contribution-Based Benefit Cap Report, and 13 is the September Financial Report. And we did provide a copy of the financial report at your seats as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Before we act to receive the reports, I'd like to ask a couple questions about the financial report. And as I anticipated, this has been an unusually volatile year. This is, in essence, this is our first quarter update. So I'd like to give you an opportunity to note any concerning trends, either on revenue or expenses or fund balance, anything that we should be aware of and keep an eye on.
Yep. Thank you for the opportunity. I will kick us off, and certainly Lee, our Deputy CFO, and Kyle Wolf, our Budget Director, can interject. We actually met as a team this week. We meet monthly to review our finances in detail. At this point, there's nothing really concerning on the revenue side. However, that is something we are tracking very closely, especially given the federal shutdowns considerations. But if there are any effects, we would start seeing that probably hitting us for October. So we are closely tracking on the revenue side. Expenditures are coming in okay. I will say the area that I'm most concerned about, and we've had conversations with the departments, it's overtime for the Sheriff's Office and overtime for emergency services. Those are things that we are working closely with the Sheriff on, as well as our emergency services leadership has put some things in place to hopefully minimize what we're seeing on that end. But I would say those are the 2 areas of most concern at the moment. But certainly as we continue to track along monthly, I'm happy to provide a brief update. Kyle Wolf, if you have anything else to add, please feel free.
Yeah, I think that was a great synopsis of what we discussed on Tuesday. We are working on doing a little bit of it's very, very early since it is just the first quarter of doing an estimate on where we think salaries will end up. As Ms. Robinson was talking about the overtime usage within, especially the sheriff and emergency services. We did budget salary savings within departments this year. And so that's, again, another reason why we are really focused on making sure that departments stay within that overtime budget. And so we are in the process of doing a little bit of an estimate to see how that will shake out in the end. And then the other thing that I would say, and I brought it up on Tuesday, is you can see expenditures as a percentage are up over FY25. And I think that makes sense because we did right-size the budget down, or we did right-size the budget. We didn't appropriate fund balance as a target to not spend. And so it makes sense that our expenditures as a percent of budget will be higher this year, I guess, than it was last year.
One follow-up question. At what point would you come back to this board for discussion and approval if overtime levels continue to be a concern regarding how we would address that?
So likely that would be a discussion we would have at mid-year, so January, unless, again, it's completely blown out the water or getting closer to that sooner than that. So more discussions probably at the mid-year, January mark.
Thank you.
All righty. We're ready for the reports. Do we have a motion to adopt the reports?
So moved.
Motion approved by Commissioner Bessie. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Linville. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
That is all of our agenda items, Mr. Chair. And our first discussion item is the federal shutdown update by Denise Price, our Deputy County Manager.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time dropping the mouse. Good afternoon, Commissioners. So I always start a conversation around federal government shutdown and updates with this as factual as I know it of this moment. It's possible that will change by the time we finish this discussion, but this is what I know to be true at this point. So today I'm going to primarily give an update on two programs. Both are funded by the USDA, or the United States Department of Agriculture. That is our Special Nutrition Assistance Program, commonly referred to as SNAP, and our Women, Infants, and Children's Services Program, commonly referred to as WIC. We'll start with SNAP. SNAP is a USDA entitlement program. It provides food benefits to low-income families to supplement their grocery budget and promote nutritious food, essentials, and well-being. In Forsyth County, there are approximately 57,000 individuals who receive food stamps. This is valued at $10.3 million each month. Benefits are issued not at one time during a month, but they're issued for individuals at a rolling kind of distribution. So some people get their benefit at the first of the month, some people get it at the middle of the month, and some get it at the end of the month. The reason that I mention that to you is if we get into a situation where funding is limited, let's assume that it happens on November the 1st, we may not know the full benefit of the full hit to the community until we get into December, because some people will have received their benefit at the end of October and may not be without benefit until the end of November.
So Denise, if you can help me realize, what is the basis in terms of individuals? Is it by their last four digits of their social? Is it last name?
I don't know that. I do not know that. And I know that Krista is working on finding out how many get at different parts of the month. Krista is here, may actually have an update. Thank you, Krista.
Is the distribution equal in terms of 3 times of the appropriations?
It's not one person getting issued 3 times.
No,
Yeah.
I'm saying, so if you have 57,000, is 17 getting it at the end of the month? Is 20 getting it at another time and the other?
So the issuance is done between the 3rd and the 21st on odd dates.
Gotcha.
So you have the 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 11th, 13th, 15th, 17th, 19th, and 21st.
Okay.
And it's done based on the last of the Social Security number.
I gotcha. Fair enough. All right.
The very last digit. And we do have some perspective numbers. So it is a pretty equal distribution. So the lowest, let me put my glasses on, excuse me. The lowest numbers we have, it looks like, is the 21st, 2971. The highest is the 3rd, and that's 4,745. And so there's a spread between that of 2,900 to 4,700.
Yeah, that's what I needed to know. Okay, thank you.
We can send you those details as well. So at Social Services, who administers locally the SNAP program, we have 72 positions that are dedicated to SNAP. That's comprised of direct line employees, supervisors, program managers, and an additional 39 employees who support the program. But some of those positions, those 39 positions, support multiple programs. The USDA notifies state agencies that funds currently available are not sufficient to ensure full issuance of November 2025 SNAP benefits. That is literally lifted from the notification, so I'm sure it prompts some questions that I don't have answers for at this point. The USDA has not yet issued guidance regarding administrative cost coverage beyond October 2025. The USDA directed states to hold November 2025 issuance files to preserve the maximum flexibility while they are evaluating contingency options. This will delay fast submitting the November 2025 issuance files to State Electronic Benefit Transfer, the EBT contractor, until further direction is provided. That means that benefits aren't being loaded at this point. All counties have been advised that they must continue normal operations for application processing, including expedited services and complete recertifications in compliance with federal and state policies, including application processing timeframes. Again, that is exactly what was said, and I'm sure it prompts some questions. We are anticipating that this could mean that there could be some unfunded mandates for us to continue to process these in the absence of funding. We'll move to Women, Infants, and Children's Program. This too is a supplemental nutrition program serving, just as the name suggests, our women, infants, and children. It is a federal grant program. So both of these programs are USDA funded. SNAP is an entitlement program, and WIC is a grant-funded program. FY26 funds have not yet been received. However, North Carolina WIC programs remain operational minimally through October. As of the end of August, we are serving in Forsyth County over 10,000 participants. In FY25, the WIC redemptions totaled just shy of $9 million. And WIC is supported by 34 employees. Local health departments, who administers the services locally, have been informed that funds may not be available for November operations. The North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services has committed to providing a minimum of a 3-day notice before any operational changes are required. Just want to mention a couple of other programs very briefly, because these are not the only 2 programs that Forsyth County receives federal funding for. Our Low-Income Energy Assistance Program. Our auto program is funded through carryover funds from last federal fiscal year, and Forsyth County has received funding that we expect would be needed to cover these automatic payments. We do not yet, though, have our federal fiscal year block grant award, and therefore we're not accepting or processing new applications outside of the auto process. The application period for those new applications doesn't begin until December the 1st. So if the federal budget is passed and funding is released in time, the Department of Health and Human Services anticipates that the broader program will launch without delay. We have also received notice, or the department has, from the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS, that they will continue operations during the shutdown. The notice indicates that sufficient Medicaid funding for the first quarter for federal fiscal year, which is October to December, is sufficient, and that also will continue federal marketplace activities such as eligibility verification using federal marketplace user fee carryover funds. Our temporary assistance for needy families. The state has covered payments for recipients for October and November, and we're monitoring this very closely.
Before you go on and ask, federal marketplace, are you referring to the ACA marketplace?
This is how it was spoken to us, and that is what I am assuming, yes. So some action items, I want you to know what we've been doing, and this is a bit tricky because we certainly do not want to create undue panic or anxiety for individuals, but we also want to be well prepared regardless of what the scenario plays out to be. So food and nutrition partners from all over Forsyth County are meeting weekly to share information and assure that we are as well prepared as we can possibly be to direct residents to all the resources that are available. We have established on the Forsyth County website a page where we are sharing updates about impacts and potential impacts of the federal shutdown on all of our local operations, benefits, and resources. I've included a link here for you. Partners are preparing for potential implications. For example, Second Harvest has doubled their key food purchases to reimburse their networks of nearly 500 partner agencies across the region. Not in here because it just happened this morning. I spoke with North Carolina United Way regarding 211. They've also staffed up to be sure to be able to timely handle any additional call volume that they receive. Our Forsyth County Pharmacy is leveraging all possible patient assistance programs for low and no-cost specialty formulas that would be eligible for eligible individuals. That's because WIC does provide specialty formulas. A local food and pharmacy partner is exploring opportunities to also dispense formulas for eligible individuals. And I would be happy to hear your questions and hope that I am able to answer them. Again, there's a lot of lack of information.
The one thing that I do want to add on the action items for this board to know is that we are starting to have discussions with our staff because about 100 employees may be impacted by this. Denise and Public Health Leadership's already spoken with WIC staff kind of about what this could potentially mean for them. And then we'll be having meetings again with WIC and our food nutrition staff this afternoon. We were honestly very surprised by SNAP because it is an entitlement program. So that really came as a surprise to us. I think we learned about that earlier this week or something like that, which is why we've not met with staff yet. So there is a meeting at 4 o'clock today actually to start talking to staff about what this may mean, because if we do not receive federal funds for their positions, then there is a process in place potentially for that.
The 57,000, is that just the number of EBT card holders, or does that include everybody in the family, other spouses and children?
I'm going to lean into Krista to give you an accurate answer to that.
Okay.
That is all individuals, so not just card holders. We have a little over 20 to 22,000 households that will be impacted. So 57,000 is individuals, all people in the household.
Okay, so instead of maybe 50% of the population of this county being hungry after November 1, if nothing changes, it would only potentially be 12.5%, something like that. 1 out of 8.
That sounds about right, because 57,000 plus or minus is the number of individuals in this county that will be impacted.
And if, well, I'm trying to parse the 8 days. Okay, if on Monday the shutdown ends, then would there be delays in handling of benefits as a result of the issues you've already indicated?
Yes, we would anticipate that since there's been a delay in loading the information onto the cards. It continues to accumulate as time passes, as you'll see by the schedule of admission. So we would anticipate there would be some delay.
And you have an estimate as to the available surplus in terms of days before Second Harvest and any other nonprofit or supplemental agencies that have bulked up in anticipation of the shutdown continuing would run out?
It is really going to depend on who ends up impacted. How this rolls out, benefits could be reduced as opposed to eliminated. In that scenario, clearly they would have inventory to last longer. Again, we're meeting weekly. We anticipate that some of our smaller food banks, which I have been amazed to learn are serving an awful lot of people, would be the first. And it's another situation where we're in an emergency or potential crisis. And I have to say, I think we live in the best community there is because our partners are talking about how they would shift resources. So if we have a smaller bank who's no longer able to distribute to the 100 people, even sharing volunteers to move over to a larger bank who would then pick up those people. So we're seeing people come together to try to plan for the better good of our community.
I just want to thank both of you for assembling a very informative report.
I agree. It's a tough time. A lot of folks.
I did have a follow-up question on the significance of this being an entitlement program and what exactly was the surprise that in terms of what you've been told by the USDA?
So what we've been told is that there are not funds to continue and they're looking at contingency plans. It was surprising to me that we would be even looking at contingency plans for an entitlement program, that support would not continue in some way during a federal shutdown, or potentially not continue.
Was that surprising for a particular reason? For example, was it in terms of the practice that has taken place in past federal shutdowns when was the practice different with regard to entitlement programs?
The timing was different. So when we had shutdowns in the past, it's usually happened later in the fiscal year. So there was some accumulation of savings that then could be reallocated and used differently. This started at the beginning of the fiscal year, so there was no time to accumulate any portion of funding.
Thank you.
Forgive me, I had just one more question. If either you can answer or no, the 57,000, how many of those are minors?
It's a great question. I can tell you on WIC that of the over 10,000 they serve, 1,900 are infants.
Well,
But we're
understood.
going to have to get Krista for the...
They're pulling out their phones.
They're looking at reports, I suspect.
We can get that to you. They're looking at their reports, but we can get that to you. And I think it's also important to know that some individuals that receive WIC also receive food stamps. And I'll tell you, when we thought it was just an issue with WIC, we thought we were going to not resolve the issue, but help by we actually put food stamp workers in WIC to try to make sure people were signing up. And then pretty quickly after, then we got the news about food stamps. So we do have some individuals on both. I don't think we know the number of who receives both.
Yeah, if you receive SNAP, you automatically qualify for WIC. So we do try, or if you receive WIC, you automatically qualify for SNAP. So we do try to cross-pollinate and encourage people. They don't always follow through with that. But we thought maybe with the potential of losing one benefit that people who had not previously opted in might be interested.
One more question. You have coinciding federal shutdown. It is not adopted even a continuing resolution budget at this point, and the failure of the state legislature to adopt a full year's budget is, in this context, is the latter either an added difficulty or does it represent an opportunity to ask for funds in the, presumably when they do get around to resolving differences between the chambers and putting a budget on the floor to vote on? I'm, looking for insight that you might have.
I know the state is actively looking for funding to continue operations. So I think they've already gone there in terms of thought. What can we do and how might we be able to sustain in some way?
If there are suggestions that you would make on reflection to pass on to us for consideration in terms of correspondence with our legislative delegation, that might be helpful.
Thank you.
All right, I actually had a request for a 5-minute recess. Let's just take a quick 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Be back.
Good to see you. I wanted to go over my quarterly update for this quarter, but it's actually been about 7 months since I've been before you on a quarterly update. I've been before you on a number of items, but I believe when I was due to give one in the summer, we were on break. So I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly at the beginning because I want to get to some policy discussions at the end. As far as staffing and work volume updates, we have two vacancies in the department, which is great. And overall, our review times are on target for our plan review and our permitting. And of course, Forward 2045 implementation, as you'll see in some of the later slides, we are heavily involved in as we are moving forward. I have placed the second quarter of this calendar year's development dashboard at your place, so I'm not going to go over these in depth, but just know that our numbers are not out of norm when compared to over the 5 years. We're higher than some years and a little bit lower than others in all of these categories. But again, our permit volume plan review continues to be fairly robust. We really haven't seen any downturn at this point as far as our permit volume. Obviously, Forward 2045 was adopted by the county back in August. Since that time, we have been working on some housing choice workshops where we went out to the public and received some information, and we've also been working on Area Plan 4.0, which is our next set of area plans that we're going to be working on. And of course, for those that haven't been on the board in the past with the adoption of an area plan, that's where we set the land use policy for individual parcels throughout the county. And our goal this time is to ensure we don't have any gaps. We've had a number of cases that have come before the commissioners over the last couple of years on the borders of some of our smaller municipalities where we had deferred some land use decisions to those municipalities and did not have parcel-specific recommendations that the commissioners had seen. And that is obviously problematic in light of the fact that there is no essentially involuntary annexation at this time. So we're going to rectify that with this new set of area plans. I did mention sort of the housing workshops that we did. We had a number of, I think we had 5 different workshops set up around the city and the county. We also had online survey, but that's essentially where we were just asking, one of the things that we heard through Forward 2045 is housing need. I believe the county commissioners have identified housing as an issue on the strategic plan. I know the city has as well. So again, just trying to figure out how we can effectively bring additional housing to the community. And some of the things we heard through the Forward 2045 and through the workshops would be to potentially amend the ordinance to allow for attached product within planned residential developments. Look at perhaps moving the land use ordinance to allow for duplexes and twin homes in single-family zoning. Since they are treated that way currently under the state building code, they are considered single-family residences. Perhaps look at allowing or creating a zoning district that allows for higher density than RM18. Perhaps exploring accessory dwelling units on church and civic organization property. And then also expanding opportunities for assisted living and life care community beyond kind of the institutional and commercial areas into residential areas. Other things that would take more effort would be if we move towards more of a density basis versus a lot size basis. That was one of the things that was mentioned in a bill that went before the General Assembly this past year, is moving towards a density basis. I don't know that that's going to happen, but those are some of the discussions that happened as part of the housing workshops. And again, we will be, this is just policy related. We're going to be moving forward towards text amendments, and we'll have stakeholder meetings related to those before we bring those forward to the elected bodies and to the planning board. As far as area plan process update, this is some of the history of how area plans have been done in the past. In the 80s and 90s, we had a few plans, but they weren't comprehensive. They didn't cover the entire city and county. With the adoption of Legacy, we moved more towards having parcel-specific recommendations for most all parcels, besides the rural policy areas. Again, those the rural policy area was kind of done as a larger blanket and didn't have parcel-specific recommendations, but just looked at those as a broader area. We updated the area plans in the mid-20 teens, and that's what we are considered Area Plan 2.0. And then Area Plan 3.0 was we did some specific corridor and interchange studies, but quickly realized that the landscape was changing and we needed to probably focus towards doing a different comprehensive plan just because all the changes that had happened over the preceding 5 or 6 years. So that brings us to Area Plan 4.0. We are, again, going to be covering everything, the entire jurisdiction. These are going to be shorter plans, less text, more graphics. We'll have fewer maps because we're truly only going to focus on land use. We will use existing plans and adopted documents to help inform the decision from the land use plan, but we're not going to be doing a lot of repetition. We're not going to include something that's been adopted in another plan and an area plan because it's redundant. Our outreach process, we're going to try to simplify this and make it shorter, again, because we want to get land use plans in place as quickly as possible so that we have parcel-specific recommendations just because of all the changing landscape that we're in. I'm not going to read all of that off, but essentially we're looking to basically focus all these meetings on land use. And that's kind of how a typical meeting series would work. And then ultimately what would happen is with the draft plan, we would have that out for review under step 4. It would be reviewed. We'd take it to the planning board for a public hearing, and then ultimately it would come to the city or the county or the city and county if it happens to be a plan that splits both jurisdictions. We are in the initial steps now. We're doing peer research. We're doing a lot of the background research. We've had the housing land regulation land use meetings, and we have created new area plan boundaries, which is this map, which I understand is hard to read. You can't read the labels. This is a map I was trying to get relabeled, and I did, but it's still not very easy to read. But the first area plan that we're going to be working on is this northeast suburban area plan. And hopefully, yes, my mouse is showing up there, but that is the area that straddles the largest part of the Beltway. There are some other parts of the Beltway that kind of lie on the edges, but that's going to kind of be that heart of the area. And that's where we anticipate doing the first area plan, and that will begin in January of 2026. And then following that, we anticipate doing Rural Hall, the west-southwest Forsyth County area, which kind of is around Clemens and parts of Louisville, and then an east suburban area plan as well. So those are kind of the first 4 out of the gate. Other long-range planning updates, you will be seeing 2 text amendments that will be coming to you over the next couple of months. One is UDO CC 30, which is a Forsyth County specific text amendment related to park signage. The UDO is very restrictive in residential areas for park signage, but there is an exception for Forsyth County parks. It's currently has if you're a park over 1,000 acres, you can have a larger sign. We're going to reduce that number down to 100. And that is specifically related to wanting to make sure folks can get in and find the agricultural park that's being constructed. If we don't do this, the largest sign you can have is 18 square feet, which is not big enough for the type of facility and use that's going to be. UDO CC 31 is another one that will be coming to you, and that's just an update on, with the adoption of Forward 2045, the UDO has language in there specifically referencing Legacy and Legacy 2030, and there's some associated changes around the activity centers. We reference both metro and neighborhood activity centers, and we only just have activity centers as a recommendation in the plan. So that'll be coming forward. Other things that we've been working on include our continued economic development assistance with Greater Winston-Salem, Inc., the Forsyth County Community Development, Winston-Salem Economic Development, and Utilities. We all meet monthly to discuss those types of items. And again, we are available for parks and site analysis and design as needed for county departments. Which brings us to the items that I truly want to get to and get some direction from the commissioners moving forward. And those are accessory dwelling units, the view corridor analysis for billboards, and then looking at annexation policy. During the adoption of Forward 2045, there was a desire to examine accessory dwelling units, secondary dwellings in the county, and figure out if what we are currently doing is enough or do we need to do something else. I think everyone knows what accessory dwelling units are, so I'm not going to go over that slide itself, but obviously they are a means to provide residential accommodations besides just being a large single-family home. The benefits increase the range of housing options, provide options for aging in place for the elderly, sick, and those on fixed incomes. They can generate income for the owner of a principal structure if the ADU is to be rented, which might get someone into a home under a home ownership scenario that they may not otherwise qualify for. Allows for flexibility and infill development while retaining the scale and character of the neighborhood if it's done appropriately. Can serve a range of different populations from students and young professionals to retirees, senior citizens, and those with disabilities. And then it also can promote economic stability for the property owner. Some of the guidance that we need is there a desire to increase the size limitations from the city? There's currently a cap of 1,000 square feet. How should we treat manufactured homes? Accessory dwelling units, should we treat them different from site-built and constructed? Should there be growth management area considerations surrounding accessory dwelling units? What should the approval process be? Should we allow more than one ADU if on a parcel of a certain size? Let's say you've got a 3 or 4 acre piece of property. Should you be able to have more than one ADU? And do you want to require greater side and rear setbacks? In the city, you can do an ADU within 5 feet of the property line. That may not be appropriate in the county on parcels that have larger acreages. So those are some of the things that we will need some guidance on moving forward related to ADUs.
Before you leave that, I have some feedback, if this is an appropriate time. Sure. There are a couple things that you're not including in the discussion process there that I think are critical. I think that if you move forward, with possible text amendments, you need to include public education on a key fact that we cannot limit these to relative occupancy. The term granny flat is extremely misleading. That is a use of these accessory dwellings, but they are never limited. We are constitutionally, literally, unable to limit them to a connection, a familial connection. So when you're talking about accessory dwellings by right, you're talking about the very real potential in many situations for what I call a double rental situation. A property owner builds 2 units on a site, meeting the specific setback and size limitation requirements, and then promptly turns around and rents out both. That has the potential for really changing the characteristics of neighborhoods. And I think that the more rural an area in the county gets, the more that will be of a potential concern to residents there. I think it needs to be part of the process for discussion. Second thing, I think you need to include an examination of whether in any changes in the text amendment, there should be environmental considerations. For example, impacts of part of the property being floodplain. A question of whether there are any tree safe requirements you want to incorporate, because otherwise you get the potential for basically eliminating the green within a community from changes such as you're talking about. I know that's not the intent, but it can be the impact unless you take into account requirements to include in the text amendment. Those are the only two additional areas I'd like to suggest to be included for extensive public discussion.
And not today, but I'd like to have that conversation also because it's going on right now. In the neighborhood that I live in, there are so many people who are renting garage apartments and whatnot.
Some of which are probably legal and some of probably which are not.
Well, you know, it's part of a neighborhood and has been for years and years and years.
If that's on the ADU, the second policy discussion gets back to a case that came before the Board of County Commissioners probably about a year or 18 months ago that I know Louisville was interested in perhaps having the county commissioners revisit, and that is the establishment of additional view corridors to prohibit billboards, off-premise signs. The view corridors have not been expanded since the late 1980s, with the exception of adopting the exact path of the Beltway in the late 2010s. Off-premise signs are only permitted in the HB, LI, GI, and CI zoning districts, so they're somewhat limited in where they can go. I have a map here in a second that, in 2 slides that basically in analyzing 3 corridors that we would recommend for expansion if the county commissioners were interested, there's only 1 parcel in those 3, it's actually 4 areas, but one's bifurcated by actually the town of Louisville. There's only 1 parcel that is currently zoned HB, and there are no parcels zoned LI, GI, or CI. So we wouldn't be removing the rights for anybody because we would have to specifically exempt that one HB property and allow it to have a billboard should it so desire under the downzoning provisions of the general statutes. But it can be done with that 1 parcel being the only exception. And I mentioned the case on Dalton Road in 421 because that was the case that brought this to light, like I said, about a year or 18 months ago. The other thing, I do have a question mark, Southern Beltway. At one point, the Southern Beltway had gone away. It's my understanding on the latest comprehensive transportation plan, there is now going to be perhaps a Southern Beltway, so we may have to revisit it in the future to add the corridor for the Southern Beltway, but that's on down the line. This is the case that was for the Dalton Road and 421 intersection there. Excuse me, I've got a tickle in my throat. West of Louisville. And this is kind of what the corridor looks like heading towards the river. Again, that's just the image from your zoning case. This map right here identifies all of the corridors that are on the National Highway System. Only National Highway System corridors are eligible for billboards. And so that has that's showing some zoning. That's kind of a map that we use to do some research, but those are where billboards could go if we didn't have view corridors and they were zoned appropriately. This map here actually shows the existing view corridors that are, it's A through O, and then P, Q, R, S, T are what we would look at as potential areas to expand the view corridor if you're interested. P and Q goes out Reedsville Road towards the county line to the northeast. R is a little section of 109 between the county line and the city limits. S and T is the area that actually brought this up, and that's 421 heading towards the Yadkin River. So those would be I was wrong, 2 of those are bifurcated. Those would be the 5 view corridors that if you were interested in, we would like to bring forward a text amendment if you're interested. The final item is dealing with annexation policy. Obviously, the statutes were changed several years ago. That makes it difficult to do involuntary annexation or forced annexation. This has left some issues around the perimeter and the periphery of the city and county. Basically, it's led to some inefficiency in delivery of services, some confusion amongst residents, split lots and split developments even. It brings up issues with street maintenance and street acceptance. You've got some places where if it's in the city, you've got a sidewalk requirement. If it's in the county, depending on where it is, there may not be a sidewalk requirement. So it gets down to its consistency and standards and also elimination of enclaves and pockets. And I'm just going to show you a number of examples, and this isn't geographically isolated. This is kind of starting probably on the northeast area of the city and going city-county interface and going all the way around. But you see where we have a street in the city that then transitions into the county, and we've got like 3.5 lots in the city, and the remainder of the subdivision is in the county. So, those first few residents get a garbage can and get their trash picked up and get street maintenance, and then, the rest kind of goes to they're on their own. Same kind of situation here. This is down off of Main Street and kind of Jones Road area, Mount Hope Estates. You've got a very bad hodgepodge of some where they were annexed. You've got a couple little popcorn lots that are in the county that weren't annexed, and then you've got area that's just in the county, but it's lying in between the city. Kind of the same thing down along Peters Creek Parkway and Fishel. This is moving down towards Darwick and areas close to Old Salisbury Road, and you've got little isolated enclaves outside of the city, totally surrounded by city. This is moving towards Shallowford Road and Brookberry. You've got a few parcels there that are in the city, and then it transitions to the county, then it transitions back to the city. This is on the northern end of Meadowlark. You've got this large commercial development sandwiched in between city. And then this is just another example where you've got some split lots and some split houses and split developments, some in the city, some in the county. And I just bring this to your attention because it's my understanding that my former predecessor was given some direction years ago. Again, I understand that we are a city-county agency, and we represent city interests and we represent county interests. And he was directed that, do not require annexation because you work for us too. And I think that's a valid point, but there are some instances where it doesn't necessarily make for sound public policy. And I think when you're going from when you're going from a street in the city and you're transitioning out into the county, I think it probably makes sense to have that annex into the city just for continuity of service, street maintenance, and other things. But again, I stand willing to hear what the county commissioner's thoughts on that would be as well.
I'm pretty sure I've heard from some of the folks who live on the county side of the lines and just furious that they're not getting their streets maintained and they're not getting their trash picked up. So if there's a way that we can legally address those situations,
and to be clear, this wouldn't solve the existing situations. What this would do is if we had a policy, it would hopefully not have additional situations like this. We can't go back and obviously require these folks to annex, but I just want to make sure I was clear, that everyone was clear. We're not advocating for making any existing residents annex. It's just as development comes online.
Yeah, for existing situations, the remedy would be for the property owners to petition for annexation into the city.
Correct.
Well, there's a lot of people that don't want to be in the city. I mean, there's a lot. I don't know. I think this is going to have a lot of discussion about that.
No, I don't disagree. I think it's a real discussion item because there are pros and cons. If you want to pay for your own trash pickup and maintain your own little street area, you should have the opportunity to do that.
Well, again, that's why I bring it to this forum. And again, if there is any feedback, if you would like to reach out to me or perhaps to the county manager to provide us some feedback on how we can move forward, if there is a desire to at least have a further discussion on any of these items, that's kind of the direction that we're looking for.
And I would say it's also not just annexing into the city. I mean, some of the examples he gave, there's like 2 houses that's in the city and the rest that's in the county. And so it could also be the reverse, again, prospectively of it may make more sense for individuals to just be in the county. So I think it's just a larger conversation and as they are doing, as new developments come on board, what does that look like?
I think further conversation would be great on a morning briefing session, one of our morning sessions where we talk about those.
So
Because
Chris,
it's a lot to think about. You've kind of set the stage for that, but yeah, I've got a lot of opinions on that too.
so Chris, I don't know what it looks like when it comes before you, but is there any public discussion? Are there surveys that have been provided before?
Whenever you're talking about when it comes before us, you're talking about the development proposals? Yeah, I mean, we see them and we know that we've got, potentially split lots and some in the city and some in the county, but following past practice, it's been our practice not to recommend, hey, you should annex this into the city so you don't run into these situations. That has not been our practice over the last 20-some years. Keeping in mind, up until the late 2000s, early 2010s, essentially cities had the ability to go back in and do involuntary annexations, but that has now not possible. What would have happened in the past is these things where you've got this development that has come online, eventually those would have probably qualified under involuntary annexation and the city would have taken them in, which would have at least rectified the confusion over whether I'm in the city, whether I'm in the county, why does this person get in this and I'm not? But because that has been taken away, we're seeing more and more of these developments. So we're just looking, if there is a policy discussion, how we need to go. But yes, we do see it on the front end as far as the development approval, but we have not and will not, unless we get direction, make it a policy to ask for it to be annexed or de-annexed, either one.
Does it happen sometimes that at the city line and the county line that a developer might buy a piece of land or contract just in the county that joins the city, and then they petition themselves, the developer, to voluntarily annex it, and then when people, it can go through the process that way, can't it?
It can. It's obviously, if a developer does it before he's transferred any lots, it's real simple. He is the petitioner and he's the property owner, so therefore he can petition for the entire thing. Where it becomes more complicated is if he has already transferred any of those lots. He has to get every property owner's permission. To answer your question, it does happen. It's happened some. Generally, there's a reason, whether it be there's a specific provision in one ordinance versus the other that makes it advantageous to be in the city versus the county. For the most part, the city and county is probably, the UDO is probably 95 to 97% the same, but there are a few caveats. Some cases it's better to be in the county, some cases in the city based on UDO regulations. There are some, but we don't see a lot of voluntary annexations, especially for residential. It's more commercial.
Well, it has happened though.
It has.
Well, what that, I don't know where you'd call it a loophole or not. I guess you could, but that even though the involuntary is not able to do so because of the state, then there is a way around that. That's the only point I was making. So,
is there a difference? Well, is the difference between a granny flat and an ADU that the former is somehow detached like a backyard unit, or are they the same?
Yes. It's both. In other words, you could have a granny flat is just a term, but Commissioner Bessie is 100% spot on. You cannot hang an approval for a dwelling unit on a familiar relationship between the primary and the secondary dwelling. A granny flat can be, is a standalone, it could be an attached. Same thing as an ADU can be attached, freestanding. It's really just, there are lots of different terminologies: garage apartment, granny flat, ADU, secondary dwelling, they're all the same.
Okay, just to confuse everybody.
Correct.
Thank you. All right.
You know, we're planners, we're good at that.
Yes, you are.
More discussion in one of our morning briefing sessions, and we'll set that up.
All right.
Do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, messy.
Actual time, I was only about 18 minutes.
Courtney, I have one question for you, and a question for the board. Actually, County Manager and I are supposed to be going to a meeting in High Point that starts at, well, the speech starts at 4:30. It's State of the Region deal at 4:30 in High Point. And we probably need to go, so there are two options. We can go, we're going to an update on Friday anyway, and we'll dismiss it and you report it, or we ask if you come back, be first, and not have to wait at a future meeting. So it's
I'm fine either way. I can come back at another time. I know you've had a full agenda today, so I'm fine
What's
with
the
that.
rest of the group's pleasure? I think Chantel and I are going to go.
Come back. That way I can get your full attention, right? All of you.
Well, I did look, November the 3rd is our next briefing session. It's a Monday.
I can't do that one, but maybe the next one. I'm going to be at a conference that day.
Okay,
So.
on the next one then should be 2 weeks from then, which will be the 17th.
Okay.
And you can be first and not have to wait any.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm totally fine with that. I appreciate it.
And sorry to keep you waiting today because you were waiting through all that.
That was a lot of good information, so thank you.
You're very gracious. All righty.
Commissioner Martin, before you close, I just wanted to clarify in all due respect to the seller of the property that you are correct that we would be paying 136% more of the current tax value, but he paid 171% more than the tax value at that time. And that, I think, was the overall point that I was trying to make. And my math was correct, but just based on the proportionate value of the tax price.
Apples.
Yes.
Never mind.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just wanted to clarify and make sure that the seller was being represented as I intended to represent him, that he also had paid way more than what the tax value was, just as you were making a point that
That was
right
his
now.
choice.
Yes.
Exactly. We stand adjourned.